It's fun. It's wild. It's Dad's Gone Crypto.
Welcome everybody to Dad's Gone Crypto, and it's another episode, another week, and today we're talking about the banked and unbanked, and why is it important, and why is blockchain evolving to take over the old establishment, right? And what's been happening in this whole realm that has led to this point in time. We're at the very early set of blockchain technology, but the snowflake is starting to roll down that mountain and things are starting to gain momentum. But before we get there, Ryan, how was your week?
Oh, it's been a pretty good week so far. Got all right, I'll be honest. No, the week started out really good. Did some kayaking with the family on the weekend. Had a lot of fun.
Nice.
Went down actually up north of us. There's a long river and called the Grand River. And, we took like an all-day kayak trip down there. Saw a lot of wildlife and bald eagles and whatnot. That was a ton of fun. And then we got into the work week, and it's it's been a long, trying week, but fun nonetheless.
It's good that it's Friday.
Yeah, exactly.
I started drinking already. Sorry.
Yeah, I wish it wasn't morning here, or I'd be doing something other than the coffee.
Oh well, yeah, it's been an interesting week as well. Just pushing. But also my kids have been a little bit sick, so when they're sick, they come and jump into my bed, and I'm a very light sleeper. So my daughter likes to snuggle, so I've been punching bag for her because she moves literally 100, if not 1,000 times a night. I was like, oh please, I just need some sleep. I'm like, hey, stop it. And then I decided, well, let me just flip my mattress over. I've got a foam mattress. It's fairly new. It's only a few months old, but let me just flip it to keep the, viscosity of the foam nice and good. Holy shit. 2:30 in the morning, my hips are like, oh, my hips are so sore. I'm like, okay, let me crawl out of bed, climb onto my little Swiss ball and start doing some yoga poses. So an hour later, the pain subsides and I'm like, well, now I'm awake. So let me go do some work. Mosey on downstairs and just starting the week off. So I'm running a bit of fumes today, but it's been a productive week and feel better than when the week started. So it's good. We're in a good space.
Great.
All right. So back to business. Some stats. All right. The World Bank Global Findex database, as of 2021, approximately 1.7 billion adults globally remain unbanked, meaning they do not have access to a formal bank account. That represents 22% of the world adult population. According to the International Telecommunication Union, ITU, as of 2020, approximately 3.7 billion people worldwide, or around 47% of the global population, were not using mobile cellular services. This includes both individuals who do not own a cell phone and those who may not have limited or unreliable access to mobile network. The World Bank Identification for Development, the ID4D, initiative estimates that approximately 1 billion people worldwide do not have a legal form of identification. This is the lack of identity documentation can hinder individuals from accessing key essential services such as education, healthcare, finance, and social protection. So we brought those three statistics in. There's a quarter to half the world in those different categories that don't have access to these types of technologies, right? So the question comes in, how valuable is it to have a bank account, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's crazy. Just reading those crazy stats there. In America here, I just take for granted, bank accounts, right? I mean, we've, and I'm sure, the other half of the world as well, the other half that isn't unbanked, but it's crazy to think about people not having access to a bank account, even though we're in crypto and, I'd love to eventually be able to get completely away from a bank account and use crypto for everything. But at the same time, I've always taken for granted the fact that, yeah, I mean, what do you do without a bank account, right? I mean, a bank account offers you security, right? At least they claim it does.
Wow.
I mean, in the U.S. we have the FDIC insurance, and I'm sure there's something similar in most countries. But I mean, basically your deposits are insured up to like 250K or something. So I mean, you've got the security there. You've got, convenience, right? Convenience, accessibility to your money with a bank account. You can get your funds anytime, anywhere, really. You go to an ATM, online banking, mobile apps. I mean, you name it. It's easy to get a hold of your money if you have a valid bank account. And then, of course, just being able to make payments to anybody and everybody. Bank accounts, there are plenty of payment options. You've got checks, debit cards, online transfers. It basically just makes your life way easier to have a bank account.
And Ryan, building a credit history, right? So you're fresh out of school, you want to buy a car, you want to buy a house. Not that you can because you're in debt, but anyways. But you need a credit history, right? Because you go to the bank, say, please, Mr. Bank Manager, please borrow me some money. So like, who are you? Where's your credit history? Now, credit history obviously tracks your performance. I borrow a little bit of money, I pay it back timelessly on the date that I said I would. And then you do this behavior consistently, your credit score goes up. They give you more credit because they know that you are trustworthy because of your track record. And of course, the guarantee, of course, that you got employment as well, and you can get that type of money. But when you don't have a bank account, that's when the problem starts. Also, financial management. Bank accounts help. You understand where you are, because it's a lot of ins and outs over a monthly basis, and you want to kind of know where you are, right? And it's a tool that helps you to plan, helps you put a budget in, it helps you to say, well, I can't afford this now, I want to afford it later on. So it empowers you to move faster through the channels of finance just by understanding the metrics.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the question now is, Ryan, the unbanked, all right, not to have a bank account, right? Imagine roaming the streets without a bank account where technically there's a teller on every corner. Like, how can you even imagine that?
Yeah, I mean, that would be tough. In the world we currently live in, I mean, being without a bank account would be super tough. I mean, think about it. Like, you wouldn't, how would you get a loan, right? Like, how would you buy a house? How would you buy a car? No credit cards. I mean, if you don't have a bank account, I think you're going to have a really tough time getting a credit card. So, I mean, how do you even get through in your day-to-day activities without a bank account? I think that's why I was so surprised when you were reading those stats and saying that like 47% of the world's population doesn't have a bank account. I just can't fathom it. It's crazy to me. Yeah, I mean. Go ahead.
Imagine living in Zimbabwe, right? You need 3.6 billion rand billion Zim dollars in cash to buy a toasted cheese and tomato.
Right.
like here's my ox wagon rolling down the street. It's just you can't keep that type of money. It's high risk. It's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous to keep money on.
Yeah, right. You don't want to be walking around with a stack of cash all the time. So. That's great.
Unless you're a rapper or live in Dubai.
Oh man, I mean, some other things. I mean, like how do you, then you got to get paper checks. I mean, that you're without a bank account, you're back in the old days. Before direct deposit, you got to get paper checks. I mean, like we were saying, lending. How do you deal with that? I don't know. It's tough for me to fathom, I think.
You got a family that lives across the city, and you're like, okay, you need some money because let's say a cousin passed away, touch wood, right? How do you send money to the person, right? So it's now you're trying to think in an unconventional way because we are susceptible to having bank accounts and we know the format and our lives are kind of easier for that. But imagine it isn't. You'll have to take a bus to come back here, to go to another city. It's very, very painful.
Yeah.
And also what I mentioned is just the risk of carrying cash. So we've got in South Africa, we've got one of the best banking systems in the world, electronic digital banking systems. We don't use checks anymore, right? We outlawed checks like years ago, just from a security point of view. So you cannot be paid or get. Maybe no, I don't think so. No, it's been outlawed.
Really?
I think. And
you can't receive a check in South Africa? Wow,
no,
that's another thing I
no,
can't fathom.
no.
That's interesting.
It's not just that America is ahead of the times just yet, but no, I think we've won the World Banking Award, if I'm not mistaken, First National Bank. It's like we went super digital because I think there was a lot more obstacles that we had to overcome as a country, whereas you had a lot more systems that supported your traditional ways. We had to jump with technology to get ahead and reduce the risks of fraud and stuff like that. So that's why we've kind of done away with that. And everything now is on the mobile phone, which is just madness. So also limited financial opportunities. Imagine saving, right? Getting your interest, compound interest, right? So you have two people, one that sticks his money under a mattress, one that puts it in a bank monthly, and just the power of compounded interest. Who's going to be better off in the long term? Generational wealth starts at some point in time where someone said, let me compound my money. That person passes away, leaves that wealth to the next family. That family is more modest if they're modest with their saving. It creates that loop of generations of your family being okay. But sticking it under a mattress, we know that's why crypto is out there as well. We know that inflation is not what they say it is. It's a lot higher. So by sticking it under the mattress, your value of what you have, $1 million or R1 million, devalues every year. You can't buy you don't have the same buying power at the end of that year, after 5 years, after 10 years. So you have to use models where you can generate, residual income through compounded interest.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually going to make that same point that, I mean, with inflation the way it is, every year you're holding money under a mattress, you're basically losing, 7, 8, maybe 10%. So it's actually
like 14.
It's quite a bit. So.
Yeah. And if you're a savvy investor like Robert Kiyosaki, all right, where he uses good debt to finance his operations. I was listening to one of his podcasts the other day. He's got $1 billion in debt. All right. Not saying go out now and go get debted. All right. But he's using the financial institutions as his piggy bank to do what he needs to do, because his income is surplus, is paying for his loan, and basically recycles that whole model.
Yeah.
So he's got the assets, which is as for security, which allows him to loan as well. But once again, those people never get ahead in buying houses and multiple houses, because how do you get that type of money?
Yeah, it's impossible.
Maybe gold and diamonds.
Yeah, right.
Maybe.
I mean, absolutely impossible without some form of banking, right? So.
Yeah. All right, so blockchain. All right, so how is blockchain changing the game? We know, just based on the financial system, we don't believe it's all that straight and narrow, even though they claim to be. All right, so blockchain stepped in and said, oh, well, let's change the game, right? What value does blockchain have? And it's in the infant stages, so nothing's perfect, but it has started, right? But tell us a couple of things there, Ryan, that, why can we be excited about blockchain technology, decentralized banks?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're here, right? We're here for crypto, for blockchain. I mean, basically, you're taking that centralized power of banking and decentralizing it and making it a money, a true money for the people, by the people, right? So there's no one but you in control of your money with crypto. I mean, basically, it's financial inclusion is probably the biggest thing. So those 47% of the world out there that can't get a bank account or don't have a bank account for whatever reason, they can come into blockchain. They can come into DeFi. I mean, DeFi, basically, the whole point of DeFi, and that's decentralized finance, the whole point of DeFi is basically to provide financial services to the unbanked and the underbanked populations out there. I mean, it basically allows banking-like services without the traditional institutions. And man, I would absolutely love if we could actually get this to catch on, and the whole world is using
Yeah.
decentralized banking rather than the old school real centralized banking. Yeah, I mean that. There's no.
Just
Go ahead.
just on that note, the trust and transparency. If you guys go and watch Copyzilla's latest episode, right now, Copyzilla is an investigative journalist, and he just unraveled a massive Ponzi scheme, right? Where yes, it's in the crypto space, right? So it's not it's Wild West out here, but through these unravelings, we're cleaning up the system. But what had happened was the old traditional model where people place a trade, right? At the end of the day, the trade was either up or down, and then they say you've made money. Cool. Now, what this guy was, and his Ponzi scheme, he was phoning the trading desk and saying, delete, all right, this date, the 22nd of September's transactions, right? Good or bad, delete them, and there was no record of it, right? Now, that's using, non-decentralized systems to get away with stealing the money. So instead, everybody lost on that day, they pocket the money, right? It's a fascinating episode. There's two of them, and in how he unraveled it and so forth. But that's the point. If it was on the blockchain, all right, there's no way of taking it. You can't hide the money. It works on a ledger system. You can only create another line of code. You cannot delete the previous code, even if that code was wrong, right? You still have to create a new one to correct it and move forward. So there's no deleting anything. And if anybody wants to do a track to check the track record of that whole transaction, it's there for everybody to see, right? So this is where trust and transparency is. You're not dealing with dodgy third parties. All right. It's making things a little more accessible from a transparency point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely a huge point. The blockchain is, immutable. There's no changing it. So it's as close to God mode in finance as I think you can get. So.
The Matrix is upon us.
Right. There's a million, use cases for blockchain and banking. Basically it, think about it. If you're leveraging blockchain and crypto, individuals can engage in peer-to-peer transactions rather than, the need of intermediaries like a bank. If I want to send you some Bitcoin, I'm sending it directly to you. I don't have to send it to my bank. I don't have to have my bank send it to your bank. And that's a huge thing. And that actually right there is one of the huge cost savings, right? Because, with regular financial institutions, with banking, if I want to send you, $100,000, it might cost me 10 grand to do so. And when you go through all the fees and everything else, if I want to send you $100,000 in Bitcoin, it's going to cost me, that tiny little Bitcoin transaction fee. I'm going to send you that for $10 compared to, 1,000 times that. So I think that's one of the main points as well.
And I think in my dad's times, it's like gold was the hottest thing, right? Physical gold, right? And it became very, very dangerous to, where do you store it, right? It became expensive to put it in Fort Knox and all these security companies. What happens if they take it? You've kept this for all these years, and then how do you send it? Okay, so I want to send you a couple of gold bars.
Yeah, right.
There's no way it's getting across a border to you, right? It's just there's too many laws, there's too many taxes, there's too many customs. It's just too expensive. The time it ends up at you, it's worth nothing, right? So Bitcoin, the same value. If it was $100,000 in gold, and it was $100,000 in Bitcoin, you can get it within almost 5 minutes, right? And that is just mind blowing. You can transfer as much as you want across, obviously exchanges permitting, but you can literally send as much as you want. And in the past, that's just not possible. And the reason also why my parents used to collect gold was because in case the country went to shit, they can just pack gold into their pockets with their kids and just literally hit to the border, and they can start a new life if it went the way, it didn't, thank goodness,
right.
But if the country went to shit. Now, all we have to do is get a ledger wallet and a cell phone, and we're fine.
Right, there you go.
Yeah. So the costs, guys. So think about traditional costs. So are you seeing where this narrative is going, right? So we have banks where we're like, okay, we're working within the system. People don't have banks, so they're not privy to all the pain points that we have. But now we're complaining about the system we're in, right? Because we want it better, right? And technically, the unbanked has an opportunity to bypass all this nonsense and go straight into almost like a utopia of fairness, right? And of low costs. Just to go overseas, you have to go to a Western Union. You got to phone up the bank. The bank says, how many dollars do you want? I'm like, cool. I want $10,000. Okay, there's going to be $8,000 in taxes. Not quite, but there's a huge fee. Then I got to wait 3 to 5 days. Then I got to come in. I got to sign the waiver, sign my life away. Where did I get my money? Da 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 da. And then when I come back, I got to give it back to them. It is such a process, right? So like, it's expensive. And then Western Union charges the other bank, and the other bank charges them to make the transfer. Everybody takes their cut.
Yep.
With blockchain technology, they're trying to take away those intermediaries that are causing all the pain points and all the expenses. And that hopefully changes the game. But obviously, the banks are still adopting slowly but surely the ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the banks are going to fight this tooth and nail because that's their bread and butter. That's how they make all their money. All those little fees, all those little, 1%, 0.5%, and whatever else fees, they add up quick. I mean, international money transfers are expensive. So, it's just ridiculous. And not to mention the fact that, I mean, they all want to say how secure their systems are and everything, but at the end of the day, blockchain is way more secure than traditional banking. Blockchain basically is a cryptographic algorithm that decentralizes the transactions. I mean, it provides great security against hacking, fraud, data breaches. I mean, it basically is taking the traditional banking system, putting it out there, so that, as we were talking about, on a ledger, everybody can see it, and it's really difficult to have any true hacks. Especially if you're talking about Bitcoin is secured by all of their nodes out in the world, all the miners, and it's there's something to be said for proof of work mining because it's truly the most secure. Basically the most secure way to secure a network. I mean, I saw some crazy stats, and it was basically that it would take more computing power it would take more energy than the entire world can produce in order to hack Bitcoin. The attack that you'd have to use so many of the computers in the world and so much energy that it's basically impossible to hack the Bitcoin algorithm. So I mean that's just an absolutely incredible stat, and it's incredible to think about the fact that any decent hacker can probably get a hold of bank account information and kind of screw you over there. It's nearly impossible to do with blockchain unless you give up something. If you fall for a scam and give somebody your private keys, well, that's a different story. But actually hacking Bitcoin, it's basically impossible.
Yeah. And then, of course, some people would say, what about quantum computing? Well, banks at the moment are investing multi-billions, right, in being quantum compliant. And technology is moving at such a fast pace that as the technology becomes more commercial, it goes straight into our daily realm, right? So it's not like, one day quantum takes over all the Bitcoin in the world. It doesn't work like that. It's the process. And the parts that are probably being used to help build quantum to some degree, all right, are also changing the game of how other things are being built. So technology speeds up for the layman's as well. But it's safe and secure. So money is programmable, meaning that you can put systems to automation use, right? So we're reliant on human beings to facilitate certain transactions and certain to create certain tasks. Now with the blockchain, the ledger writes the code, it validates it, it rechecks it, it is protected by the system, and then the transaction happens, right? And if you need to add another, you don't delete it. You don't just go to the tear out a page from a ledger book. It's all there. So it's programmable, and you can use these. I know now World Mobile, one of my favorite projects, and it's relevant to this topic, is because they're solving a problem where their whole model is, how do you get people more connected? How do you get people more internet? How do you get more people on a cell phone? And they asked this question a couple of years ago, and they said, well, half the world doesn't have a cell phone, right? Which means a quarter of the world doesn't have bank accounts, and of that, they don't have identities. So how do we empower these people, right? There's no way there are that many humans on the planet that can solve that problem in one particular company. It's just too many hands trying to solve the problem. So where did they go? They went to blockchain technology, Cardano. Off the infrastructure of Cardano, they basically helped build a system whereby now they've introduced cellular services into remote areas. And what does that mean? Cellular, I can make phone calls, data. All right. So now all of a sudden, Cardano is releasing a product where you can have digital identity, where you are in control of what I give you. If you want my ID number, cool, I'll just go into my app. What do you want, Ryan? Okay, you want my ID, you want my personal details. No, you can't have that. You can't have my wife's phone number. All right, there you go, send. So it's you're in control. Right now, we're not in control of our personal information. Once we're giving it to the institutions, they can do whatever they want with it, which is not right. We should be responsible for our stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, Cardano's digital identity solution, it's really empowering users, right? It's empowering users to have individual control over their personal data. They can basically selectively decide to disclose their information or not. It safeguards their personal privacy, and they're avoiding unnecessary data sharing, because truly, I mean, your identity in the traditional sense, it's shared everywhere. I mean, everybody sees everything, right? Cardano is giving you a digital identity that you choose who sees what, and I think that's really important. I think it's a super cool thing that they're doing there.
Yeah, I definitely shouldn't have given my details to the local strip club. They keep sending me messages. Welcome, sir. We've missed you.
You can't wait for him to go digital, right? you need your Cardano
exactly.
digital security. Other than what do you put?
Come on, Cardano.
What do you put in their G-string then? Digital. You putting wallet addresses?
Ooh, Jeez, that's actually an interesting thing.
How does strip clubs work on the blockchain? They're gonna have to have a little QR code reader. You send your tip through the QR code.
All right, we're brainstorming.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it might be a business opportunity. But first, let's do some research. We've got to go to OnlyFans to find out exactly what their pain points are. Wife, if you're watching this, just understand it's all research. In the name of crypto. Love you, babes. Oh, jeez. But yeah, so, you know, it's just incredible. If you take, like, if you stop and think, right, those three statements, it's 22% of the world's population, right, are unbanked. 3.7 billion people worldwide, 47% of the global population are not using mobile or cellular services or internet. And of course, 1 billion don't have identification. So, like, if I said, Ryan, try to solve this problem, you're like, no, the problem's too big. Each country must sort out their own nonsense, right? Okay, cool. So one country decides to sort out their problem. But what about the rest of the world? Right? That's how telecommunications at the moment work. They kind of just say, well, let me get infrastructure going in the country. Let's put up these towers. Let's connect where we can, where there's the most return on investment. No, that outlying town is not good enough for us because it costs too much to run. The towers are too expensive, loss of revenue. They must just use whatever. Telegram. Not Telegram? Yeah, Telegram, the old Telegram, right. Where they push little buttons. So here's these guys, World Mobile, Mickey and the team saying, well, let's just think global for a second, which is unfathomable. Let's just try to connect the people, right, that are unconnected in these areas that are fishing villages and towns that are left by the wayside all across the world, including in America. Let's give them internet. Oh, by the way, once we've given them cellular and internet, well, let's just build a platform that gives them loans and finances and connectivity. A fisherman in a village can say, hey, I've caught too many fish today. Do you want to come by and just collect some half price? Right? All of a sudden now he's getting more money. He's getting more money in. Therefore, he say, oh, I can get a bit of a loan now because his digital identity from the Cardano blockchain has said, well, he's a good payer and he's a good customer. Therefore, let's give him, a little bit of credit. And then he proves himself, they give him a little bit more credit. So all of a sudden, if everybody in the village did some form of trade and connectivity and barter system and loan and they repaid it correctly, the whole village grows, right? It's just incredible. And it's a numbers game. So they're launched now in 5 countries and they're scaling and scaling. They've proved the model works. Now it's just about taking the model and giving it to guys in another country and say, good, install, go, all right? They've built the back-end system to accommodate all this. It is unfathomable to believe how they can solve this problem. And it's like when you think about crypto, you think, oh, it's to make money and get rich. But you think what these guys are doing, they're solving a real world problem using blockchain technology and some of the smartest people on the planet. Right, and this is why I get goosebumps, and this is why I'll keep talking about them for that, because they're just incredible people, right? Yeah. Doing incredible things, and this is the beauty of blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they are by far one of my favorite projects as well, and it's just that. I mean, they can truly change the world if they're able to deliver on their promises here, and I think they are. I mean, they've definitely been making a lot of headway, so I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. All right, guys, it's that time of the show that Dad's got jokes, and the objective of this is to drink beer. So if you laugh or you don't laugh, we're just drinking beer. It's Friday. It's been a rough week. We're drinking. All right. The quantity we cannot disclose on this show. We might think we're alcoholics, but it's been one of those. One for every bad situation that happened this week, and 2 for every good. All right. Anyways, so Ryan's going to go first. He's going to tell us his dad joke. All right. And I'm going to try not laugh. If I do, then he wins the point. And I'm going to do reverse. And we'll vote which one's the best. And the loser will drink. All right. So Ryan, have you been preparing? Because the last couple of jokes haven't been so great.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this one goes. This is what I was just told. So we'll see.
Okay. All right.
Ready?
All right. I am ready. And
so why couldn't the sailor learn the alphabet? He kept getting lost at sea.
Really? You're really bringing out sea jokes at a time like this, Ryan? Shame. Where's my wife's whip? Got a little tassel this year. Shame. Any SpongeBob SquarePants jokes under the sea? No? Nothing, Okay.
All right, let's hear your joke.
All right. Why don't scientists trust atoms?
What?
Because they make up everything.
I like that one. Good one.
It's better than a sea joke. By default, I win. Yes, Joby. But I'm also drinking.
I'll be happy to drink a case of beer later.
I look forward to the drunk text messages, Brian.
Just don't record any of them for the show. So
Not again. Not again.
please no.
We went on a boys' golfing weekend trip this past weekend, and debaucherous, but good fun. And it's like everything was just calm and peaceful. And then there's always that one guy. That one guy is like, all right, starts to have a little with tutors, or maybe half a bottle, and like all shit breaks loose. The cameras are out filming. We're like, do not send this to our wives. It's a boys' trip. It's a guy code.
Well, now it's out there for everybody to hear, so just don't name which one of you it was.
It was not me. I love you, wife. I'm barred from all golf trips. Anyways, all right, guys, that concludes our show today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget, join our Telegram chat. Come chat to us in there. Visit our Twitter accounts at Dad's Gone Crypto. And please don't forget to share some comments in the section. Ask us a few things. If you want to hear anything, please do so. And don't forget to subscribe and click the like button. Have an awesome weekend, guys, and we'll see you next week. We've got an awesome guest coming on board. It's going to be an interesting time.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Ciao, ciao.
The material and information presented in this recording are for entertainment purposes only. Do not misconstrue what you hear as investment or trading advice. Always do your own research. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by the guests on this recording are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Dad's Gone Crypto or its hosts.